morning, everyone. That was some introduction. I always look around to see if I can find that person that is describing that long introduction. It's kind of amazing to hear yourself laid out that way. It's a lot of fun. So I want to thank Dr. Meekin and thank Dr. Danker for the invitation for reaching out, thinking that I might be just intrigued enough and curious enough to accept the invitation, but it was more than that. I'm proud of the work that both Dr. Danker and Dr. Meekin are doing here at Miami University. So I want to give them a round of applause. All right, I know I'm the guy who's standing between now and all of the workshops and presentations today, so I want to get this started. So let me take this hat off. This is an important piece of attire. I tell my students in the college that if you see a hat like that on our campus, I'm probably the guy underneath it. And that's how they recognize me. So this idea of learners and teachers is really interesting to me, because we usually put teachers and students together. Teachers and students. Blank and learners. It's educators and learners. Educators. Teachers, students, educators, learners. Learning is an active process. I mean, teaching, being a student, is about there's a transference of information, but learning is an active process, engaging in new ideas, and it's an ongoing process. So I'm interested in learning more than I am in teaching. That makes sense. All right, so it didn't occur to me until a few days ago, which is really odd because I've been talking to Dr. Meekin and Dr. Danker for months now about coming here. It didn't occur to me that we're now in February. And typically February is a way that the time we look at Black History Month or African American History Month. And so I thought, this is really interesting. What's going on at Miami University? And well, you all probably know about Nellie Craig Walker, first person of color, first African American student. Graduated in 1905 from Miami University. Penn State, the first two African American students were Mildred Button and Calvin Waller. You see the dates that Nellie Craig Walker is here. Research I did said she graduated in 1905. I'm not sure when she started, but I know Calvin Waller graduated in 1905, so they're comparable in terms of time. There's a building on campus now named for Nellie Craig Walker, and at Penn State there is a scholarship called the Bunton Waller Scholarship. Make that parallel. Search for the good and make it good. This is the challenge for the artist, right? Not simply to transform those ideas into matter, mess with those ideas so that they matter. I love words, I love playing with words. It's not just the matter, the materiality of teaching, the materiality of the arts, but it's what matters. What is the matter in both senses? But I'm really interested in those ideas. So I have 5 ideas I want to share with you. It's essentially the outline. Learning to interpret what Steve didn't teach us. Curriculum movie trailers. This is a Dr. Meekin indirect connection. Tiny Presidents and Reservoir Studio. So, learning to interpret. Before we can learn to interpret, let's take a look at this cartoon. I love this cartoon. One image, one panel. On the right side, you have this large fish, crazy, gnarly teeth. Some debris seems to be falling. There's 4 fish to the left. One is a bit larger, and the bigger fish says, "No, we can't swim any faster." The school curriculum is geared for the slower swimmers. So the 10 of you will have to wait for the others to catch up. I can count pretty well. I don't see 10 other fish there. I only see 3. What happened to the other 7? Yeah, Did the curriculum swallow them? The curriculum ate them. The curriculum was predetermined and had its own intentions. Because those slower swimmers didn't swim at the pace that the curriculum to outswim the curriculum. They got swallowed up by the curriculum. That doesn't sound like education to me. The theory is one thing, but in practice can be a ravenous foe. So what's our job as teachers? What's our job as educators? What is the role of the learner? We've got to figure out about what this swimming thing is. Do all the fish swim the same way? Should we expect all fish to swim the same way? How do educators enable all of the swimmers, all of the fish, to swim through that body of water? Because their experiences in that water are different, even though they're all swimming in the same water. Learning to interpret. Back in the 1900s, I published an article. It's true. Back in the 1900s, I published this article in a journal called Educational Leadership. That's the entirety of the article. It's 3 pages. It was the first one that my ideas were out in the world and people responded. It was the first time somebody who never met me read what I said and said, you know what, maybe other people need to see this too. Art lessons, learning to interpret. A couple of key points from this article. Important themes revealed through works of art can inspire research, can inspire discussions, and artworks that explore important social and cultural conditions. Back in the 1900s, this is what I thought was important. I still think it's important today. A quarter of a century later. Students need a strong foundation in history, literature, in sciences, and in music, and in other subjects, so that they can really have a good experience in the arts. I kind of twisted people's thinking around. Usually, other subjects are privileged, and the arts help those other subjects move where they need to go. What if we turn it around? I think knowing and having a foundation in other areas helps you in the arts. That's why those other subjects are important, because what we do matters. Curriculum comes from the Latin root currere. Currere is the infinitive, which means to run. So the curriculum is not a noun. The curriculum is a verb. Swimming is the verb. The course is a noun, but to course through a pipe, or to course through a river, or to course through an electrical wire is a verb. Our students course through the curriculum we construct. The noun. There are 5 concurrent curricula according to George Posner, you probably know. The official curriculum, this is what we're going to do. The operational curriculum, that's kind of how we did it. We have a hidden curriculum, that's kind of implied. We didn't tell you about it, but this is really what's going on. The null curriculum, that's the stuff we decided not to teach you. And then there's the extra curriculum that's outside of the school hours, outside of the official courses. But learning happens in all 5 of these, and these 5 curricula happen all the time concurrently. I just tend to privilege some over others. To me, this is what curriculum is. That's a lesson plan, that's a unit plan. All at once, multiple things are happening. There's a lot to course through, and some people pay attention to this, and others to this, and some people are linear, and some people are spatial. So much. How do you decide what to teach? Teachers teach. What are our learners learning? Well, I'm glad I'm here at this pre-service conference. Back, not in the 1900s, but the early 2000s. I was the only art educator at a university, where I was teaching all the courses for our pre-service students, and then when they go out and do student teaching, I was going out and observing student teachers as well. And I decided, I gotta figure out if I'm making any sense, if we're doing anything worthwhile in our classes. So in the fall, I would invite all of the new teachers who previously had been in my classes, and we had a little forum, we had a little conference, and I had all of the undergraduates who are currently taking courses, and then those new first-year teachers came back and they were the panel. I introduced each one of them, and then I sat down in the back and I opened my notebook and I took notes, and their job was to explain to all of the students who were currently at the university studying art education what Steve did not teach us. And I took their feedback and I incorporated it into the learning for those students the next year. So one of the things that I did teach them, but what I didn't teach, it was great feedback, by the way. So one of the things that means is that I'm asking for trouble, but in a good way. I'm troubling. I'm asking those first-year students to trouble the curriculum they experienced, to question, to provide feedback. Because by troubling something that's standard, it allows other things to happen. And to do a double take when you look twice at something, sometimes that's when you see it for the first time. Sometimes that's when you see it for the first time. So, you have a piece of paper and you have a magic marker that you put on the paper, it tends to bleed. Have you ever done that? You take a marker and you put it on paper and it just starts to bleed all over the place. That's not useful for taking notes. Actually, it's really useful because that marker marks time. You've probably done, maybe you've done this activity before. I'll say to the student teachers, what I'd like you to do when you get to your placement, one of the first activities is to draw a map, draw a layout of the classroom, draw a layout of that art classroom. And you might indicate where the students are, but draw a map of that classroom and mark where the teacher is with your marker. And then when that teacher moves, I want you to move your marker. When that teacher stops, I want you to stop your marker. When the teacher moves again, I want you to move the marker. When the teacher stops, I want you to stop the marker. So it's a time reference. You might get a map something like this. This allows you to do a double take. Allows you to look a second time at not what the teacher is teaching, but where teaching is happening. And perhaps even where learning is happening. This teacher spent a lot of time in this one location. Moved in certain ways, sometimes went back into the storage room, but came back. And those little S's are students who were spoken to during that period of time. This is me over here. That's not me, that's the student me. And that's where they sat to observe. How are we looking at how we're teaching? Can we do a double take? Can we map out, not just visually in a snapshot, but a time-based reference of where is teaching happening, and perhaps where learning might not be happening. All right. How many people have seen a movie before? Oh, some, very many people. Good. And in this place called movie theaters, because now you can just watch them on your phone, or you pull them up on the TV. But even in those contexts, you have to have advertisements, you have to have prompts, you have these things called movie trailers. Amazing voiceovers. Imagine a place where art teachers partner with a Center for Indigenous Knowledge and create curricula that does. You'd watch that movie, would you? Imagine a place. All you have to do is start with imagine a place. What if you took the idea of a movie trailer and a feature-length film and said, well, no, this is going to be the lesson plan. The lesson plan, or the unit plan, is the movie. The trailer of that movie. What would the trailer for the movie of your lesson be? If your lesson was a movie, what would the trailer look like? Well, years ago, this is my Dr. Lincoln shot at VCU, I taught a course where it was based on an art education curriculum, and I said, we've seen these, right? You know, when that little green thing comes up, you know what's happening next. Imagine a place, right? Or in a world where, right? You know, somebody's deep voiceover is going to start giving you really scary things to think about in action shots. So explore a concept, a theme, or a big idea in a 1 or 2 minute movie trailer or concept commercial. That was the assignment. And when I was using digital technology in the early days, we had to give people information like, oh, this is in QuickTime, so you better make sure you download QuickTime so your computer can watch it. Now we just click on stuff and we can see things. So thanks to Drs. Meakin and Danker, I thought I'd try to find these videos. They're no longer living on the web, at least I couldn't find them. This guy probably helped me find them. At any rate, this is what the website looks like. So in 2002, more than 2 decades ago, this is the kind of trouble I was asking teachers. Just want to show you a few of them. So these, what you see, this is Angie's brief statement. There's Brooks' brief statement. But the themes that they were talking about, innocence, women in society, preoccupation with beauty, love. These were the themes and central concepts in their lesson plans. And they made these brief 1 or 2 minute videos to help us think about that curriculum. Kim and Lauren's trailers. Boundaries. It's a great theme. Escapism. Education. Poverty. Homelessness. Imagine a world. What if? You just start with just a couple of words as intriguing openings. What would a movie look like? What would the lesson look like? If you can design a lesson or design a curriculum that would keep people's attention the way that we have our attentions kept to watch a movie, that's the way you write lessons. What's the sequel? When's the sequel coming out? Oh, there's a whole franchise, okay. And there's merch. I can buy some merch for the lesson plan and the curriculum. As I used to tell my students, yeah, you can do things like that. Or you can do boring stuff. It's your choice. All right, time presence. Probably picked up by now I'm a little troublemaking kind of person. I like to ask questions. Question the answers. Question assumptions. For 4 summers, I taught at Vermont College of Fine Arts. Started a low residency program, master degree program, that also had teaching licensures. So students would come for a summer, take some classes in a couple of weeks, maybe a month, they'd go back home, do their thing, and then they'd come back the next summer, do some more things, and they'd learn their licensure. Or they then do student teaching. In Montpelier, Vermont, the state capital is just right there. It's within walking distance. That's the state capital for Vermont. It's also a classroom. Well, it is to me. Any place is a classroom. Any place is a place to learn. Any place we can course through and experience as a learning opportunity. But going on the guided tour is one thing. What if you could actually construct the tour with a little prompt? What if you had a prompt? What if you took along with you a tiny president? These little presidents about this big. You can buy them in a tube. It's literally called a tube. T-O-O-B. Google it. You'll find tube, T-O-O-B, tiny president or little presidents. Anyway, these are the presidents they put in there. If you don't know who they are, here they are. I don't know why they chose these presidents. The first 3 at least are in Hamilton, so that's pretty good. Andrew Jackson and Abraham Lincoln has some pretty defined pecs. I mean, the blur doesn't help you to see that. Teddy Roosevelt's actually pretty fit too. He's a good-looking GQ model president. Anyway, these are the ones that they put in the collection. I just bought them in the toy store downtown, and I handed them out to these students in class. I said, what are you doing? I said, well, on our walk from our classroom to the state capitol, which was about a half a mile, here's your tiny present. You have your phone, figure out who this person was. I said, okay, but we don't know. I said, just come on, let's go. And then we went into the state capitol, and we went on a guided tour, and they had your little tiny present. And I said, listen, I want you to read and experience the state capitol and this tour with your tiny president. I want you to put your tiny president in conversation with the tour and in conversation with the state capitol. Okay. Oh, there's one more thing. I want you to take photographic documentation that you're doing this. Oh, are we supposed to take photographs in this place? I don't know. Find out. They were. Photographs were fine, but I didn't let them know. So they're like, this is secretive stuff. What kind of conversations would a tiny president have in the state capitol? That's a portrait of George Washington in the state capitol. Tiny President George Washington. Please keep up. Oh, look. John Adams is inside the cannon. Not to put, you see that guy up there behind the red baseball cap guy? You probably recognize him. Anyway, I don't think John Adams kept off, so they did say please. Conversations, critique, in reference, making references. We can only read one thing in relationship to another. Quotation from Teddy Roosevelt. Oh, there he is. Oh, buff Teddy. Abe Lincoln. There was a sculpture of Abe Lincoln. These students were looking around. They were wondering where and how their president could relate to this place that they had never been to. They were making connections. They were finding, even though some of them might just be one-to-one, but then they started asking, well, why is Abraham Lincoln? I thought he was from Illinois. What does he have to do with Vermont? Turns out somebody in Vermont knew somebody else in Italy who made the sculpture of Abraham Lincoln, and it was a gift, and then I never know or care about that. If the little tiny president didn't show up too. But tiny presidents, we can't find tiny presidents in our toy stores, Steve. How are we going to do this? Well, find tiny somebody else's. Maybe you can find tiny people who look like they do different kinds of work. Like somebody wearing a yellow construction hat and blue denim shirt and jeans. Maybe state capitals are places for the people. Maybe legislators make decisions that affect the working class. Or maybe the working class gets left out in the weeds. I'm just looking at images and making sense of what I'm seeing. How do you reach your city? How do you reach your community through and with a tiny president or a tiny village people, whoever this was? Yeah, we went back to the state capitol with tiny people. We didn't need tiny presidents, we needed tiny people. But these tiny people were mighty people because they helped us read this place for the people. It's amazing. That's a speaker on the desk where one of the state senators would sit. Imagine if this guy had a voice, said one of our students. Imagine if people like him had a voice, and his voice was heard. Imagine if there were some women depicted in some of these paintings in the state capitol. That's it. And what kinds of social and cultural questions we can ask with tiny people, tiny voices, tiny presidents. And then once we do that, what does it mean in terms of those monuments, those people that we've built up and held in esteem? Do our readings help us see them differently? We start to crumble myths and assumptions. I wonder what conversations we have with these folks. That's an interesting collection of tiny presidents. I don't know why one of them's waving at us, but it is. Okay. Reservoir Studio. A reservoir is a place that collects water, holds water. Studio is a place where you make things happen. I went to Penn State and had been doing some work with clay and ceramic water filters. I'll go into some detail with that in a little bit. And was looking for a place to work. And they said, well, we have this place in the basement of one of the oldest buildings on campus. I said, it sounds great. Put me in there. Okay. Little did I know that it also, when it rains, it collected water. So we called it the reservoir. And plus, we were doing things kind of under the radar, underground. So it was this underground place that collects water, but it's a collective. Lots of word. Anyway, Reservoir Studio. If you were to wonder why, in what ways water matters in the world, in 2040, how many years away is that? 16? Is that right? 16? Little child who is just born today, by the time they are in high school, this is the prediction. Where water stress will be highest by 2040. The ratio of water withdrawals to water supply. I don't know if you are good at geography, but there's a red spot there. We're sitting in that red spot. And red means high. In 16 years, we've got a serious situation on our hands if we look at it through this lens with respect to water. If you had 100 bottles of water, I have one here, so if we had 99 more bottles of water, put them on the table. And those 100 bottles of water represented all the water in the world. Because you know you can't make new water, right? So all the water that's ever been is all the water that is now. It just gets repurposed and recycled and flushed and consumed and washed, right? Could be dinosaur saliva in here. That was pretty disgusting. You get my point, right? I mean, all the water, this is like, I'm drinking history here. 100 bottles of water. Of those 100 bottles of water, how many bottles of water have salt water and we can't drink because it's in the oceans? Now, how many of those 100 bottles of water have salt water or salt water? 97 of those bottles. So that leaves us how many bottles of not salted water? 3. Of those 3 bottles that are left, how many of those are ice in the polar ice caps? Show me the peace sign. 2. This is all of the water that's potable. Or, no, I'm sorry, I misspoke. This is all the fresh water that we have access to. And of the fresh water that we have access to, if I fill this up, that is potable. How's that for visual representation of quantitative information? Global water crisis. So this is the Palmer Museum of Art. Actually, it's the former Palmer Museum of Art. Penn State, where going to open a new museum. I know you all have conversations here about revised or maybe even expanded art museum here. This is the plaza in front of the Palmer Museum of Art, in the middle, smack dab in the middle of campuses. What if somebody likes to make trouble and offer educational experiences? What if you spend an entire workday making a difference for other people? What if I took an entire operation from the Reservoir Studio where we make these ceramic water filters? We can take some clay, you can take some sawdust, and you put them together, and then you form this kind of upside down bell. You put it in the kiln, all the sawdust burns out, so you have pores in the clay, but the clay already has pores, and those pores are smaller than the sawdust. And then you go out to the parking lot or the creek or wherever, and you take some of that water and you pour it in there, and it filters through that clay. And any microbes, any waterborne disease that is in there goes through the pores that are left from the sawdust, but those microbes don't get through the natural pores in the clay, because the waterborne disease is just too big. It just won't fit through. It's like Winnie the Pooh trying to get to the honey. You do that, you trap 95% of the waterborne disease. Then if you had a little bit of colloidal silver, and if you were wearing silver piercings, I can touch just about any part of it, right? A piercing made out of silver, that's a natural antimicrobial. That's why silver is a good thing for children. You add a little bit of colloidal silver to that clay, it renders inert the remaining 4 or 5%. So you essentially have potable. Artists have been doing this. I've been teaching people how to do this. I've been engaging in learning opportunities for people to learn this process and try it out. So what if we moved an entire studio to do this and spent a work day right there in the middle of campus? What do you think would happen? Well, before we get to that, there's a video that the Big Ten Network did where they got word that this guy in the fedora was making clay pots in this soggy basement of an old building in the middle of Pennsylvania. And if you Google Carpenter underwater or Big Ten ceramic water filters, you can find it. A simple response can have a large impact. A tiny president can allow us to have a big conversation. A single magic marker can enable us to see time differently. Something small can have a big impact. As art teachers, be careful what you teach. Someone will learn it. So, say you see a hat like this on campus, I'm probably the guy under it. Take a ceramic studio out in front of the museum, and you get some other students, art education students. Yeah, I'm game. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's see what we can do. So you're going to lecture, Steve? Or are you going to stop every 20 minutes and have a lecture? No. When people are curious and they start asking, what are you doing? Then you can engage them in conversation about the thousands of children who die every day around the world because they don't have access to sanitation and clean water. Then you can talk to them about children in certain parts of the world who go to school 1 out of every 3 days because those other 2 days they're at home with dysentery or some other disease. Then you can tell them about the 500,000 people in Texas who don't have clean water in their homes. We can tell them about any other number of statistics that we've talked about while we're wedging the clay to make these filters that make a difference. So we thought this is a good idea. And we start demonstrating the process, this appropriate technology in the middle of campus. These don't look like the backs of heads of college kids, do they? No. What the guy in the fedora didn't realize was that on this beautiful day in April, the museum had invited busloads of elementary school kids to come to the museum. They just had to see the steps. They had to go up those steps and into the red doors. The kids thought it was a little more interesting to see the clay guy and the fedora than to go in to see the artwork. Oops. So we had conversations. We had discussions. We asked questions of each other. We responded to each other. To search for the good and make it matter. This is the challenge of the artist. Not simply to make those ideas from matter, but to make those ideas matter. There's a ceramic water filter. That's what it looks like. It fits inside a 5-gallon water bottle. Teachers stopping to listen. Probably a little upset that this guy is, eating up the time for this. I think everybody's paying attention, except for this person looking over there. But this person was actually telling their friend, pay attention. Well, actually, even if they weren't paying attention, one out of all of these other people ain't so bad. Everyone can connect to making. Everyone can connect to questioning. Everyone can connect to learning. Teachers teach. What are our learners learning? Thank you.
Do you have any feedback right now? What did you think? Anybody want to provide Dr. Carpenter things you liked or took away from that?
Wordplay was awesome. In case I can play with references to get in throughout. That was fascinating. And also really intriguing and just captivating.
Thank you.
Comments? Talk to him.
Today, you know how to find me.
Quite approachable. So, we really appreciate your talk. Dr. Carpenter has been one of my biggest influences in my career in the way that I think about teaching and big ideas and themes and social justice. So please engage with him today and with each other about a lot of these